My son stood up at his graduation dinner, tapped his wine glass with a fork, and said 5 words that would end our relationship forever. My mom is a failure. The restaurant went silent. 50 people, family, friends, his professors, all stared at me while his girlfriend held up her phone, recording every second of my humiliation, a smirk playing across her lips. My name is Patricia Hayes, and this is the story of how one sentence destroyed my son's future and taught me that sometimes the cruelest lessons come from the children we sacrifice everything for. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments. I'd love to know this story is reaching people who understand what it means to give everything to your children, only to have them throw it back in your face. It started 23 years ago when my husband left. Daniel was only 2 years old, sleeping in his crib when Robert packed his bags and walked out without a backward glance. No explanation, no apology, just gone. The divorce papers came 3 weeks later, along with a check that barely covered half a month's rent. I was a 28-year-old woman with a business degree I'd never used, a toddler who needed me, and exactly $417 in my checking account. My parents were gone. Robert's family blamed me for the divorce, and I had no siblings to turn to. It was just Daniel and me against the world. I took a job as an administrative assistant at a medical supply company. The pay was terrible, but they offered health insurance and flexible hours when Daniel got sick. I worked there for 18 years, watching younger employees with fewer qualifications get promoted over me because I couldn't work late or travel for conferences. Every time a promotion passed me by, I thought about Daniel's future and told myself it was worth it. Our apartment was a 1-bedroom walk-up in a neighborhood where sirens sang lullabies every night. I gave Daniel the bedroom and slept on a pull-out couch that never quite pulled out right. The springs dug into my back, but I told myself it was temporary. Everything was temporary until Daniel could have a better life. I packed his lunches every morning, helped with homework every night, and worked weekends doing medical billing from home to save for his college fund. While other mothers went to book clubs or girls' nights out, I sat at our kitchen table, entering insurance codes until my eyes burned and my fingers cramped. Daniel was brilliant. His teachers said so at every conference. He tested into the gifted program in 3rd grade, made honor roll every semester, and got a full scholarship to the state university for his undergraduate degree. I was so proud I could barely breathe. But undergraduate wasn't enough. Daniel wanted his MBA, wanted to go to one of the top programs in the country. The scholarship covered some of it, but not all. He needed $50,000 for 2 years. I took out loans. I cashed in my retirement. I sold my car and took the bus to work for 2 years. I picked up a second job cleaning offices at night. My body ached constantly. My hands developed arthritis from years of typing and scrubbing. But every time I transferred money into Daniel's account, I felt like I was winning. I was giving my son the opportunities I never had. He met Brittany during his first semester of the MBA program. She came from money, the kind of family that had a summer house and winter house, and probably a few others scattered around for good measure. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, and she'd never worked a day in her life. She didn't need to. Her trust fund paid her more in interest each month than I made in 6. The first time Daniel brought her home, Brittany looked at our apartment the way you'd look at a museum exhibit of primitive living conditions. She didn't say anything rude, but her eyes said everything. She touched nothing, sat on the edge of our worn couch like she might catch poverty, and left after exactly 23 minutes. After that visit, Daniel started making excuses why I couldn't meet him at his apartment. We'd meet at coffee shops instead, always places near my work, never near his school. He stopped calling me Mom when his classmates were around. I became Patricia if he introduced me at all. I told myself he was just trying to fit in with a different crowd, that it was normal for young men to be embarrassed by their working-class roots. I remembered being 24 and wanting to be anyone other than who I was. I gave him grace I probably shouldn't have. The graduation dinner was Brittany's idea. She insisted on throwing it at Giovanni's, an Italian restaurant downtown, where the cheapest entree cost $42. I'd looked at the menu online and felt sick. My budget for meals out was usually around $12, and that was on special occasions. "Don't worry about the cost," Daniel had said on the phone. "Brittany's parents are covering most of it. We just need you to chip in $300 for your portion." $300. I'd been working 60-hour weeks between my two jobs for months, and my bank account showed it. But this was Daniel's graduation from his MBA program, the achievement I'd sacrificed everything for. I took an extra shift, skipped buying groceries for a week, and scraped together the money. I arrived at Giovanni's 15 minutes early, wearing the one good dress I owned. I'd bought it 7 years ago for a wedding and had worn it to every important event since. It was navy blue, modest, and starting to show its age at the seams. I'd paired it with shoes that pinched my feet but looked professional. The private dining room was decorated with balloons in the school colors. 50 people milled around, drinking wine and eating appetizers that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. Brittany's parents held court at one end of the room, her father's booming laugh filling the space. Daniel stood with a group of his classmates, all of them in expensive suits, all of them looking like they'd never worried about money a day in their lives. When Daniel saw me, something flickered across his face. Not happiness, not pride. It looked almost like shame, and that hurt more than I wanted to admit. "Mom," he said, walking over. Not Patricia this time, but the tone was cold. "You made it." "Of course I made it, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss this for anything." I reached up to hug him, but he gave me an awkward side hug, already pulling away before I could hold him properly. Brittany appeared at his side, her arms snaking around his waist. "Patricia, so glad you could come." Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Love your dress. Is it vintage?" It was 7 years old, so I supposed it was. "Thank you," I said, refusing to be embarrassed. The dinner started well enough. I found my seat at a table near the back, surrounded by Daniel's classmates and their parents. They talked about vacation homes and stock portfolios, while I cut my chicken into tiny pieces and tried to make it last. The food was good, probably the best meal I'd had in years, but it tasted like dust in my mouth. Then came the speeches. Brittany's father went first, talking about leadership and legacy and all the things wealthy men say when they've never struggled for anything. Then Brittany stood up, giving a toast about Daniel's brilliance and their future together. She mentioned their plans to move to New York, to work for her father's company, to build an empire. I waited for Daniel to mention me, to acknowledge that I was the reason he could afford this degree, that I'd worked myself to exhaustion so he could sit in this room wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. Instead, he stood up, clinked his glass, and smiled at the room. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "Getting my MBA was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I couldn't have done it without support from the people who believed in me." He thanked his professors. He thanked Brittany's parents for showing him what success looks like. He thanked Brittany for standing by him. Then he looked at me. The room was silent, everyone's attention on Daniel. I sat up straighter, foolishly hoping for a moment of recognition, of gratitude. "I also want to address something," Daniel continued, and his voice had changed. It was harder now, with an edge I'd never heard before. "There's been a lot of talk about sacrifice and hard work, and I think it's important to be honest about something." My heart started pounding. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the sudden stillness of the room, in the way Brittany was watching me with that smirk. "My mom is a failure," Daniel said clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "She spent her whole life making excuses for why she never achieved anything, blaming my father for leaving, blaming her circumstances, never taking responsibility for her own choices." The words hit me like physical blows. Around the room, people froze, forks halfway to their mouths, wine glasses suspended in air. "Stop clapping for her," Daniel continued, even though no one had been clapping. "Stop pretending like working menial jobs is some kind of virtue. The truth is, she had opportunities and wasted them. She had a business degree and never used it. She could have built something, could have been something, but instead she chose to be a victim. Brittany had her phone out, recording everything. The smirk on her face was undeniable now, triumphant. This had been planned. They'd planned this humiliation together, probably laughed about it while picking out the venue. "I'm grateful for what she did," Daniel said, and somehow this felt worse than the insults. But let's be clear, I succeeded despite her, not because of her. I'm standing here today because I refuse to accept mediocrity, because Brittany and her family showed me what ambition looks like. He raised his glass. So here's to success, real success, and to leaving behind the mentality of victimhood and poverty. People didn't know whether to drink or protest. A few glasses rose hesitantly. Most people just stared at me, waiting to see what I would do. I stood up. My legs shook, but I stood up. Every eye in that room was on me, watching the failure, the woman who'd wasted her life, the victim who couldn't take responsibility. I looked at my son, this stranger wearing Daniel's face, and I saw the truth. He was embarrassed by me, ashamed of where he came from. Brittany and her family had spent 2 years teaching him that people like me were beneath him, and he'd learned the lesson well. "Excuse me," I said quietly and walked out. No dramatic exit, no tearful scene. I just left. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. The arthritis in my fingers made them ache, a reminder of all those nights cleaning offices, all those hours at the keyboard. For this. I destroyed my body for this moment. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. "Mom, you're being dramatic. Come back inside." I drove home and cried for the first time since Robert left. I'd told myself I was strong, that sacrifices were worth it, that love meant putting your child first no matter what. But what do you do when your child doesn't love you back? When they see your sacrifices as failures and your love as weakness? The week passed in a blur. I went to work, came home, stared at the walls of my apartment. I didn't hear from Daniel until exactly 7 days after the dinner. He called on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at my night job, scrubbing toilets in an office building, when my phone rang. "Hey, Mom." His voice was casual, like nothing had happened. "How are you?" How was I? I was broken, humiliated, destroyed. "I'm fine," I said. Good. Listen, I need to talk to you about something." I stopped scrubbing and sat down on the edge of a desk. My knees hurt. Everything hurt. "What is it, Daniel?" "So, Brittany and I have been talking, and we've decided to move up the wedding. We want to do it this summer instead of next year." He hadn't even apologized for the dinner, hadn't acknowledged what he'd said or how he'd humiliated me in front of 50 people. He'd moved on like it never happened. "We're looking at venues, and obviously weddings are expensive. Brittany's parents are covering most of it, but there are some additional costs. I was hoping you could help out." I almost laughed. Almost. Help out? Yeah, contribute to the wedding fund. I was thinking maybe $15,000. I know that's a lot, but you could take out another loan or something. You've still got some equity in the retirement accounts you haven't touched, right? $15,000. He wanted $15,000 from the woman he'd called a failure a week ago, from the mother he'd publicly shamed while his girlfriend recorded it. "Daniel," I said slowly, "where would I get $15,000? "I don't know, Mom. Figure it out. You always do. Take out a loan, ask the bank, refinance something. That's what you're good at, right? Making sacrifices?" The sarcasm in his voice was unmistakable. Something inside me broke. Or maybe it finally healed. I looked around the office where I was cleaning, at the gleaming desk where some executive would sit tomorrow, making in an hour what took me a week to earn. I thought about my apartment, my aching body, my empty retirement account. I thought about the little boy I'd rocked to sleep every night, the child I'd promised to protect and provide for, and I realized he was gone. The man on the phone wasn't my son anymore. He was someone else, someone Brittany and her family had created, someone who saw love as weakness and sacrifice as failure. No, I said. What? I said no, Daniel. I'm not giving you $15,000 for your wedding. He laughed, actually laughed. Come on, Mom, don't be ridiculous. You've always come through before. This is important. So was your respect, I said. So was treating your mother like a human being instead of an ATM. So was remembering where you came from. This is about the dinner, isn't it? God, you're so sensitive. It was a joke, Mom. Everyone knew it was a joke. It wasn't a joke to me. Fine, I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry. Now can we talk about the money? And there it was. The apology that meant nothing, offered only because he wanted something from me. How many times had I accepted these hollow words? How many times had I let him treat me poorly because I was afraid of losing him? I realized I'd already lost him. Maybe I'd lost him years ago. Daniel, I said, and my voice was steady now, calm. You called me a failure in front of 50 people. You said I wasted my life and that you succeeded despite me, not because of me. Mom, let me finish. You're right about one thing. I did make sacrifices. I gave up promotions, retirement, my health, relationships, everything so you could have opportunities I never had. I worked 2 jobs while you studied. I ate cereal for dinner so you could have decent meals. I slept on a broken couch for 18 years so you could have a bedroom. I know, and I appreciate... No, you don't. If you appreciated it, you wouldn't have humiliated me. You wouldn't have let your girlfriend record it. You wouldn't be calling me a week later asking for more money without a real apology. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched out. I could hear him breathing, could imagine him getting angry, preparing his counter-argument. Here's what I'm going to say to you, Daniel, and this is the only time I'm going to say it. You're right. I am a failure. I failed to teach you gratitude. I failed to teach you kindness. I failed to show you that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account or their job title. I failed to make you understand that the woman who sacrificed everything for you deserved your respect, even if she didn't deserve your admiration. That's not fair. I'm not finished. You want $15,000 for a wedding to a woman who helped you mock your own mother? Here's my answer. No. Not $15,000, not $1,500, not 15 cents. You're an MBA graduate now. You're brilliant. You're ambitious. You figured out how to get everything else you wanted. Figure this out, too. You're being petty. No, Daniel, I'm being done. Done sacrificing for someone who sees sacrifices as weakness. Done funding a lifestyle for someone who's ashamed of me. Done being your ATM and your punching bag and your example of what not to become. So that's it? You're cutting me off over one mistake? One mistake? I felt something like laughter building in my chest, but it came out as something harder. Daniel, you've been cutting me out for 2 years. I'm just finally accepting it. If you're watching this, and you've ever been taken for granted by someone you loved, someone you sacrificed for, hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes the hardest stories to tell are the ones where we have to choose ourselves, and I want you to hear how this ends. Fine, Daniel said, and his voice was cold now, all pretense of warmth gone. Fine, don't help with the wedding. Don't be part of my life. See if I care. I hope you have a beautiful wedding, Daniel. I hope you and Brittany are very happy together. I hope you build that empire you're planning. But you'll do it without my money, without my sacrifices, and without my presence. You'll regret this. No, I said, and I meant it. I don't think I will. I hung up. For the first time in 23 years, I hung up on my son. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from relief, from the sudden lightness of putting down a burden I'd carried for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. I finished cleaning that office building. I went home to my apartment. I looked at the pull-out couch that had destroyed my back, at the kitchen table where I'd worked those endless nights, at the walls of the life I'd built around my son's needs, and I decided something that night. I decided I was done living for someone who didn't respect me. The next morning, I went to work at the medical supply company and asked for a meeting with the HR director. I'd been there 18 years, always passed over for promotions because I couldn't work late or travel. But my son was graduated now. My sacrifices were finished. I want to be considered for management positions, I told her. I know I haven't pursued them before, but my circumstances have changed. She looked surprised but nodded. We have a logistics manager position opening next month. It would mean evening meetings sometimes and occasional travel. I can do that now. 2 weeks later, I interviewed for the position. 3 weeks after that, I got it. $20,000 more a year, better benefits, actual vacation time. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine, earned for me, not to be immediately handed over to someone else. I sold everything in my apartment that reminded me of those sacrifice years. The pull-out couch went first. I bought a real bed, a good one, and slept through the night for the first time in years. I quit my night cleaning job. My body thanked me for it. I didn't hear from Daniel for 3 months. No calls, no texts, nothing. I thought about reaching out 100 times, thought about apologizing, thought about being the bigger person and making peace. But every time I started to dial his number, I remembered his voice calling me a failure. Remembered Brittany's smirk, remembered the way 50 people stared at me with pity. I deserved better than that, even from my own son, especially from my own son. Then one day, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Patricia Hayes? A woman's voice, professional. Yes? This is Jennifer Morrison from Hartwell & Associates. I'm calling regarding a matter concerning your son, Daniel Hayes. My heart dropped. Is he okay? Is he hurt? He's fine physically, but I'm his attorney and I'm calling because he's filed a lawsuit against you for what he's calling educational fund fraud and emotional manipulation. I sat down. What? Mr. Hayes claims that you manipulated him into believing you sacrificed for his education when you were actually obligated to provide for him as his parent. He's seeking repayment for what he calls emotional damages, stemming from years of guilt-based manipulation. He's asking for $150,000. My son was suing me for raising him, for paying for his education, for loving him. Miss Hayes, are you still there? Yes, I said. I'm here. Mr. Hayes has also filed for a restraining order, claiming you've been harassing him and his fiancée. He says you've been calling repeatedly, showing up uninvited and making threats. That's not true. I haven't contacted him once since our last conversation 3 months ago. I'm just informing you of the claims. You'll need to respond to the lawsuit within 30 days, and there's a hearing for the restraining order next week. I'd recommend you get an attorney. An attorney. With what money? I'd spent everything on Daniel's education and had just started rebuilding. I understand, I said, and hung up. I sat in my new apartment. I'd moved to a better place with my raise, and I felt something I hadn't felt during the dinner humiliation or the phone call about the wedding. I felt rage. Pure, clean, clarifying rage. My son wasn't just ungrateful. He wasn't just cruel. He was trying to destroy me legally, financially, emotionally. He was trying to rewrite history, to make himself the victim and me the villain. And he was doing it while living in an apartment Brittany's parents had bought them, while planning a wedding he wanted me to fund, while working for her father's company. I called a lawyer, not an expensive one. I couldn't afford that. But a woman who specialized in family law and agreed to take my case for a reasonable fee. This is ridiculous, she said after reviewing Daniel's lawsuit. He's an adult. You fulfilled your parental obligations years ago. Anything you gave him after he turned 18 was a gift, legally speaking. And this educational fraud claim? There's no such thing. He can't sue you for paying for his education. What about the restraining order? Do you have proof you haven't been contacting him? I showed her my phone records. 3 months of nothing. No calls, no texts, no emails. He's lying, my attorney said flatly. We can fight this easily. But I want you to think about something. Do you want to fight this? Because fighting means depositions, means court appearances, means facing him and probably Brittany and her family. It means making this public. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I said, I want to fight it. The restraining order hearing came first. I sat in that courtroom and watched my son lie under oath. He claimed I'd called him 50 times. He claimed I'd shown up at his apartment building. He claimed I'd threatened to ruin his wedding. Then my attorney presented phone records, building security logs showing I'd never been to his address, character witnesses, my employers, my neighbors, who testified to my character. The judge wasn't stupid. She saw through it immediately. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice sharp, "making false claims in a restraining order is a serious matter. Not only am I denying this order, but I'm sanctioning you for filing a frivolous claim and wasting this court's time. You'll pay your mother's legal fees for this hearing." Daniel's face went red. Brittany, sitting behind him, looked furious. But that was just the beginning. The lawsuit took longer, but my attorney was right. It was completely without merit. We filed a motion to dismiss, and the judge granted it within 6 weeks. Not only did Daniel lose, but the judge ordered him to pay my legal fees for the entire case and fined him for filing what she called a malicious and baseless lawsuit, clearly designed to harass the defendant. $23,000. That's what Daniel had to pay me in legal fees and sanctions. But the real justice came from somewhere I didn't expect. 2 months after the lawsuit was dismissed, I got a call from a woman named Susan Price. She was a friend of Brittany's mother, had been at the graduation dinner, and she'd seen everything. "I've been thinking about that night for months," Susan said. "What your son did was wrong, and I couldn't stay silent anymore. I want you to know that video Brittany took, it went viral in their social circle, not because people thought it was funny, because people were horrified." She told me that several of Daniel's classmates had distanced themselves from him, that Brittany's own father had questioned whether Daniel was the kind of man he wanted in his family, that the video had somehow made its way to the HR department at the company where Daniel was supposed to start working. "They rescinded his job offer," Susan said they couldn't have someone with character concerns representing the company, and I heard through the grapevine that Brittany's parents cut off their wedding funding, said they weren't going to support someone who treats his own mother that way. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you deserve to know that people saw the truth, and because Daniel's been trying to reach you." He had been. I'd seen the calls, the texts, all blocked. I'd deleted them without reading. "He wants to apologize, I think," Susan said. "Or maybe he just wants help now that everything's falling apart. Either way, I thought you should know." I thanked her and hung up. 3 days later, Daniel showed up at my apartment. I don't know how he got my new address, probably from some official court document. He knocked on my door at 7 in the evening, and when I looked through the peephole, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked smaller somehow, tired. The expensive suit was gone, replaced with jeans and a regular shirt. The confidence that had radiated off him at that graduation dinner had vanished. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "Please, I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About everything. About how sorry I am. About how wrong I was." He was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "Brittany left me. Her family won't return my calls. I lost the job. The wedding's canceled. Everything's falling apart, and I know it's my fault, and I need my mom." I looked at him. This man who'd called me a failure, who'd sued me, who'd tried to destroy me, and now needed me to save him again. I felt something I didn't expect. Not satisfaction at his downfall, not anger anymore. Just a profound sadness for both of us, for the relationship we could have had if he'd learned different lessons, if he'd valued different things. "Daniel," I said quietly, "do you remember what you said to me at that dinner?" I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was trying to impress Brittany's family, trying to be someone I'm not. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." And the lawsuit? The lies about me harassing you? He flinched. Brittany's idea. She said if I sued you, if I got money from you, her parents would respect me more. She said it showed I was tough, that I didn't let people take advantage of me. I know now how insane that sounds. You tried to destroy me, I said. Not just hurt me, destroy me. In court, legally, financially. I know. He was sobbing now, this grown man with an MBA, this person I'd raised. I know, and I hate myself for it. Please, Mom, please forgive me. I have nowhere else to go. Brittany kicked me out of the apartment. Her family blacklisted me in their business circles. I can't find work. I'm staying at a motel, and I can't even afford that for much longer. Part of me, the part that had rocked him to sleep as a baby, that had sacrificed everything, wanted to pull him inside, fix this, make it better. That's what mothers do. That's what I'd always done. But I thought about the pull-out couch, the arthritis in my hands, the years of my life I'd given to someone who'd thrown it back in my face. I thought about the woman I'd been before I finally chose myself. I forgive you, Daniel, I said, and I meant it. Holding on to anger would only hurt me. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean I'm going to save you from the consequences of your choices. What am I supposed to do? The same thing I did when your father left and I had a 2-year-old and $400 to my name. Figure it out. You have your education, your intelligence, your youth. You have everything I gave you plus everything you claim to have earned yourself. So earn it. Mom, please. I spent 23 years teaching you the wrong lessons. I taught you that sacrifices have no cost, that mothers are endless wells you can draw from forever, that people who love you will always be there no matter how you treat them. I was wrong. So now I'm teaching you the last lesson I have. Actions have consequences, and sometimes the people you hurt can't or won't save you from yourself. I stepped back and started to close the door. I love you, I said. I'll always love you, but I'm done sacrificing for someone who doesn't value the sacrifice. Goodbye, Daniel. I closed the door. He stood outside for 20 minutes, knocking, pleading, crying. Eventually, he left. I haven't heard from him since.